Hello everyone, it's Vivi and welcome back. Title says it all. There's a new Sly Cooper game rumor on 4chan. Well, There was a rumor, which then turned into a Sly 5 rumor. I just straight up wanted to make this clear before we all jump too quickly into the Sly overhype bandwagon. A new Sly Cooper game was rumored to be in development at Sucker Punch. Again, as a rule of thumb, this originates from a 4chan post, which hasn't been archived, was shared twice apparently by the same user, and deleted twice on Reddit, based on the replies I saw. If you click on the link of this 4chan post, it's gone. It got 404'd. No screenshots, nothing. One would think a screenshot would have been taken, but nothing. Zero. This whole story began with a tweet shared on July 30th. This was a tweet simply talking about the rumor on 4chan, but the link itself wasn't shared on Twitter. Shortly after, the 4chan link, the actual link, was shared on Reddit. The link was taken down afterwards. It was shared again around August 8th, and the link was gone again. Within this post right here is where things took a turn for the unexpected. A decently reliable insider shares a response to this deleted 4chan post on Reddit. This insider, who goes by the name Shpeshal Nick, who's co-host at Xbox Era Podcast on YouTube, who was also formerly called Shpeshal Ed, just for those curious out there. He wrote this as a response to the 4chan rumor. For whatever it's worth to anyone, I've heard something similar. I didn't hear Sucker Punch were doing it. I just heard someone was making Sly 5. I guess Sucker Punch would make the most sense, but I keep being told, not them. Before I say anything, let me bring up more replies to some questions folks asked him on Reddit. User Huntington1998 asked, "Do you know if it is a continuation of Thieves in Time? I really want that cliffhanger resolved." Nick replied, "No idea, mate. My DM only says Sly 5. I've only ever played a small part of the game that came out on PS3, so I don't know much about the franchise." Next question by user MLG Ishan. "Hey Nick, not sure if you'll read this, but thought to give it a shot. I had a question about Sly 5. Is the development of it undergoing right now, or are there just plans for it?" Nick replied, "From what I've been told, it's being worked on, but I'd like to double check that with my source. The way they worded everything in my DM makes me think it's actively in development right now, but I'd rather ask them outright if that's the case before being definitive on it." And that was it. No further response to that question. That reply was shared on August 16th. So there you have it. We started with a 4chan post, and then we got a response by someone named Shpeshal Nick, who some people deem being a reliable source. Alright, let's go back to his very first response. I'd like to put emphasis on his wording, alright? For whatever it's worth to anyone. And I've heard. Consider the fact this was shared as a response on Reddit to a 4chan post out of all things. Typically, Shpeshal Nick either shares this sort of information on Xbox Era Podcast, which he co-hosts, or he just outright hints at stuff on Twitter. Why hasn't he talked about this Sly 5 rumor he's heard of on Twitter or his podcast? Weird, ain't it? Like he's not sure. Perhaps explains what he said in the beginning of his statement, for whatever it's worth to anyone. I'm not trying to shut him down, like no, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's wrong. No. It's just what all this screams to me. It's simply business talk at Sony headquarters. Bear with me here. Sly 5 could have been discussed among developers at Sony, but in the end, it could have gotten scrapped. Like they tried coming up with a potential sequel, but the developer, whoever it was, they just had trouble. They didn't know where to take the franchise. This could perhaps be what Nick's sources heard of or got confused about. Anyway, why did this Sly 5 rumor gain so much traction lately? Just who is Shpeshal Nick, aka Nick Baker? You've probably heard that name instead. Let's go over his track record to try and understand why people have been calling Nick a reliable source. Let's first go over the stuff he's gotten right or almost. First, about the Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut expansion. He claimed it'd be an expand-alone, a la Miles Morales, Lost Legacy, or even Gears Hivebusters. What he had heard, this expand-alone title would be titled Ghosts of Ikishima. This was tweeted out on June 24th. A YouTuber by the name Dealer Gaming had actually tweeted about the same thing a couple of hours before. Well, pretty much a similar thing. That most likely implied a standalone title. Expand alone, I mean, it is a strange way of putting it, but he did use the word standalone on Reddit. As for how he didn't get the part 100% right, well, we got Director's Cut of Ghost of Tsushima with an expansion called Iki Island. This was announced 1 week later, on July 1st. Next up would be the PlayStation Plus lineup, well, one of the games being Final Fantasy VII Remake. This was tweeted out on February 24th. It was confirmed to come to PS Plus in March 2021. Back on February 3rd, 2021, Gearbox, the one behind the Borderlands series, got acquired by Embracer Group, who were formerly known as THQ Nordic AB. He tweeted something about this on January 28th, 2021. Mario vs. Rabbids 2. He tweeted a photo revolving around the idea of a sequel. Was it a hint or anyway? Sparks of Hope got announced during E3 2021 on June 12th. The common denominator here, what he got right, or almost, everything was stated either a couple of days or a week prior to the actual reveal. He's also shared other things. Heck, he claims to have heard that a new Wipeout game is in the works. Time will tell for that one. He also claims that a Souls-like PS exclusive game is being developed from software, despite the team already working on Elden Ring. Apparently this was his rumor mill for the week after. He got scooped. Scooped meaning this information surfaced before Nick planned to tweet about it. Back in March, he tweeted something about Persona 5 on Xbox. He shared the following image. Fans are still waiting. As for what he's gotten wrong-ish, Elden Ring showing up at the Game Awards 2020, back then he was known as Shpeshal Ed. The game ended up getting new footage during Summer Game Fest in June 2021. Microsoft potentially acquiring Square Enix. This was tweeted out on April 15th. Square Enix later debunked this rumor of getting bought by another company. They were never planning to get acquired. May 31st, he tweeted out saying that a new Nintendo Switch reveal would happen soon. Then he backtracked, saying he wouldn't be surprised if it got pushed back. The new OLED model revealed later, on July 6, 2021. New God of War gameplay at Sony's show. July's State of Play didn't feature God of War. A Quake reboot. This was during his June 20th podcast. It turned out to be an HD remaster for Switch, PC, Xbox, and PS4 for August 19th. As for next-gen upgrades, well, that will be coming soon. He apparently got banned from the stuff I saw in Reset Era. As I said previously, he was known as Shpeshal Ed. He was pretending he was an insider, and he just got banned because Reset Era didn't like that. He explained on Reddit that he acts as the dummy. He hears these things from other insiders. He's not the one who gets this information himself. He gets it from others. With that out of the way, having covered Sly Cooper on this channel for years, a healthy mindset I recommend is to just wait. Just because Nick has gotten things right in the past doesn't guarantee Sly 5 happening. Like I said previously, Sly 5 could have just been talk within Sony headquarters. Where to take the project, make it a standalone title like Rift Apart, where to take the series, what direction, and all that. Ultimately, the game never saw the light of day. That could be what his insiders were on about. Something I haven't brought up. I personally don't think Sucker Punch would return to Sly Cooper anytime soon. I feel they would rather work on a Ghost of Tsushima sequel. Let's not forget, they always focus on one game at a time. That's their studio's foundation. Unless Sucker Punch magically decides to split their team or expand to a much greater extent, I just can't imagine Sly being made by them, especially the long year gap since their last Sly Cooper game, Sly 3 back in 2005. Sucker Punch does have a bunch of job openings, focus on multiplayer being one of them, as well as senior writer. They even state for our next project. But really, it could just be them expanding the team for a potential Ghost of Tsushima sequel. Nick's sources kept telling that Sly 5 is not being made by Sucker Punch, but Nick feels Sucker Punch would have made the most sense. Would it really? Speaking of Sucker Punch, Nate Fox, creative director, was featured in Game Informer's issue 329 back in September 2020. Ghost of Tsushima launched on July 17th, 2020. A co-op multiplayer Legends released free on October 16th, 2020, just for reference. This was what Fox had to say when Sly Cooper was brought up. It seems like Insomniac Games, on some level, still likes messing around with Ratchet & Clank. Do you guys ever have a desire to go back to any of those old mascot games like Sly Cooper? I would certainly love to make another Sly Cooper game. I missed those characters tremendously. I missed the voice actors who played those characters tremendously. But right now, it's such a pleasure to work on a samurai cinema game, to spend your days thinking about this genre, which I'm a big fan of, and to get paid to try and reproduce something that allows you to play inside that kind of world. It's exciting. I'm not ready to give up on that. Pretty much. Sucker Punch doesn't want to let go of the current momentum they've reached with Tsushima. Yes, this was back in 2020, but between then and now, we got Director's Cut with Iki Island expansion. Legends is planned to release Standalone on the PS Store on September 3rd, along with a new mode titled Rivals. Through September 10th to October 1st, 2021, Sucker Punch wants to release new piece of content for Legends each week. If you're curious about Ghost of Tsushima and Legends or Rivals, more information can be found in a link in the description below. So where was I? I don't have much else to add regarding the whole situation around this Sly 5 rumor. No one knows if Shpeshal Nick's statement holds any truth. It's simply something he heard from his source. His source, for all we know, could have gotten confused with a Dreams Sly Cooper sequel project titled Court of Thieves by Damsel Interactive. Maybe I'll talk about this fan project in Dreams. I mean, it looks pretty interesting. Maybe I'm exaggerating here. The source getting confused with Fangame. Would Nick's source really get confused to that extent? There's something I've read in the comments a couple of times. People saying, oh, have you heard about Sly 5 getting released in 2022? Well, I think you're getting confused with Sly 5 The Return of Ancestors. It's fanfiction, guys. Do not get confused. Now, let's go over a couple more things before I end the video. The voice of Sly Cooper tweeted this back in June. Everyone, let me share cause we seem to go through this every year. If Sony is planning a surprise return of Sly Cooper, they have yet to involve me. I understand the hope that Sly will swing his cane again, but any conspiracy that includes me is wishful thinking. I say with love. To be frank, voice acting typically happens much later in development of a game. As Miller himself stated in an interview held by Podcast Now, voice acting usually happens much later in development. In Miller's experience, voice acting is done last, at least looking at Sly 1, 2, and 3. As for Thieves in Time, voice acting sessions was handled differently. The voice work was done in an episodic fashion. World 1 is complete, alright, let's add the voices. Some might look at Miller's statement on Twitter and think of NDA, well, he can't really say much, right? Or some might think he hasn't been contacted yet, because development hasn't reached that phase of voice acting. But should we set ourselves up for disappointment with that kind of mindset, thinking that Miller will be contacted soon? Something else you guys might add, oh, what if Sony's not planning to recast Sly with Kevin Miller? I mean, what would be the point of changing out the voice actor? Now, there was the movie teaser from 2014. Kevin Miller didn't voice Sly in that clip. It was actually the voice of Ian James Corlett. I'm not too sure what Sony was thinking back then by swapping out the voices. Maybe they thought back then that, okay, if we replace the voice of our iconic Sly Cooper, it might attract a bigger audience. Other than that, I don't see the reason why they would replace his voice. In our hearts, the voice of Sly Cooper is Kevin Miller. Another thing, PlayStation Studios head Herman Hulse, back in May, stated that PlayStation had more than 25 PlayStation 5 games planned. It was not made clear if all games would be from first-party teams, at least going off the words from the Wired interview. Nearly half are new IPs. As for the other half, we all assume it's existing IPs. What else? Is Sly Cooper one of them? We don't know. Who knows? The golden rule here is whatever rumor you hear, take it with a grain of salt. All in all, this whole Sly 5 rumor thing? Me personally, I'm not getting my hopes up. Heck, I can't deny the fact that this started from a 4chan post. So again, if anything, it could just be an idea which was discussed somewhere at Sony but never came to fruition. So with that being said, I believe I've said plenty regarding this subject. So with that being said, if you don't agree or agree with some stuff I've said in the video, please feel free to mention it in the comments section below. And as always, I've been Vivi, and thank you so much for the support and for always tuning in. I've been Vivi, and until next time.